Welcome to another edition of the show with no name. This one from the side porch of Casa Bob. All right, what the heck day is it now? Why do I always have to?
Friday the 25th.
25th of? I don't know. It's a Friday. Whatever it is, it's Memorial Day weekend. So that's why I got my flag tie on. Well, let's see. I guess we got some unfinished business from the last time we were here. Gavin. Last time we were here, you were not school board member-elect, I don't think, were you?
Well, that's finished business.
Is it finished business? It's just the beginning.
He's there.
We've been elected, but we get sworn in beginning of July.
Wow.
We went to the board meeting.
And I see. As soon as the election's over, suddenly they found a way to spend a couple hundred thousand more bucks. How'd that happen?
To save some positions that originally were going to be let go.
The day after the budget's adopted.
Where did they find the money?
They got some money from the state that they had not anticipated. And
what do you mean they hadn't anticipated? That's a lie. That's a lie.
They did not know it was going to show.
It wasn't encumbered.
It wasn't encumbered.
Yeah, it wasn't encumbered. Right. It wasn't encumbered. And why wasn't it encumbered? It should have been encumbered. If they were doing their job right, it should have been encumbered one way or another.
It wasn't there. It was held in abeyance.
Right. It was all money that they could have. Yeah, that's great. And of course, they didn't wait for you two guys to get on the board either.
No. They wanted to spend it out of.
And you probably can't even change that once they've restored the positions, can you?
Correct. Once they're restored, they're in there because contractually, if they let people go after that's been adopted, then they have to pay them anyhow.
So the whole thing was a fraud on the taxpayers.
Yes, exactly. It sure was.
It was not as transparent as it should have been.
Yeah, transparent. Yeah, all of a sudden the next day. Yeah, the next day.
Transparent.
You know, thank God Gavin Murdoch was elected. That's all I got to say. You better do your job or you're off the show.
That's right. And we're going to hold you to it. So every Friday, we want to.
That's right.
We don't meet every Wednesday then.
Well, no, Fridays because you've had 2 days to digest what you did.
What you did wrong. What you did wrong.
Right, yeah.
What you screwed up 2 days before, and we can tell you about it.
That happens.
And we can tell you about it.
Sure you will.
I gotta say, obviously, I'm pleased you won, and you came in first by a long shot. I continue to be appalled at the decrease in participation. I mean, I understand after last year, people probably just fed up. But you can't even get 2,000 people to vote in a school board election in the whole district. And if it wasn't for those people in the town of Florida all coming out to vote,
what was I almost say it's funny, but the thing of note is that the city of Schenectady had almost exactly the same number come out to vote as we did. And can't be
is that right?
Yes, sir.
Oh my God! People have just given up.
Yeah,
they have, and it's a sad commentary on
the electoral process in all areas because it's the same thing with.
Well, it's been continuing decline in city participation for sure.
Absolutely.
Wow.
We'll see what transpires.
Well,
what happens?
You've got till July to make a lot of list of things that you're going to do.
Make my list and check it twice, and we'll find out who's been naughty and nice. I'll tell you.
Well, I hope you're able to work some kind of coalition there to take control, because things are definitely out of control at this point.
I think there are some people like minds on the board that'll be able to work together to get things back perhaps the way they should be.
Yeah, that'll be great. That'll be great.
Yeah. And also, we got our signs down quickly, so we weren't littering the city of Hampton with our signs.
And you did manage to put the thank you up, however.
Yes.
And somebody complained about your sign was still there. And
Skip Gray got the thank you signs. We put them on. We left them up a little over a week after the election, and they're all taken down.
Well, a week was too much for a couple people because they said they should have come down immediately, even though
it said thank you on.
Even though it said thank you, and that was brought to their attention. So,
damned
if you do, and damned if you don't.
There's.
Yeah. And then you're Amsterdam.
You are.
Yeah.
You are. Wow.
Speaking of Amsterdam, tomorrow Amsterdam is having its Memorial Day. Monday they're going to have a Memorial Day program.
Well, it'll probably be tomorrow by the time most people see this.
Well, there wasn't a whole lot in the paper about it
Monday,
but they're going to have it up at Veterans Park at 8 o'clock Monday morning.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Because
AM.
some of the some of the organizers have something to do late morning.
Also Memorial Day related.
Memorial
Yeah.
Day,
8 o'clock.
yeah.
Well, I don't know if this is going to work because Paul Woolman's given the address and he doesn't get up that early.
Well,
And I wonder if he knows.
Well, I'm sure he does know because he's one of the recipients of this year of
Good.
the MCM
Very good.
Veterans Medal.
so that means he's got to get up early.
Yeah.
And so do I.
Yeah.
He had a, he had a very interesting military career, Paul.
Colonel, wasn't he?
I forget what he was. He was an officer. Yeah, he was an officer, and I don't think he got that high. Captain, maybe.
Captain?
I'm not sure. One of those C's.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know for sure. We'll
Yeah,
find out on
one,
Monday.
yeah.
But he, he would occasionally get, not occasionally, once he got called to represent the Air Force on Guam at a meeting of all the head honchos in Saigon, and had to explain to the general staff how things really operated, and then he. One time he got a call. He was working the midnight to 8 a.m. shift on Guam.
Yeah.
In other words, somebody had to answer the phone. So that was his job. He was like officer of the night or whatever. And he gets a call from Washington to come down with orders on what they want the next day's bombings to be, at what height they're going to drop the bombs from, or what height they're going to go off, whatever, all the technical stuff. Robert McNamara calling personally.
Wow.
The Secretary of Defense. And he says, excuse me, Mr. Secretary, he says, obviously you're not aware of a few things. And he starts explaining the technical reasons why it's going to take the whole day to change the pattern on the planes that have already been loaded. And they're not going to get the...
And you're calling in the middle of the night.
Another time he had a general come along on a B-52 mission. Brigadier General James Stewart.
Really?
Yeah. So he hosted Jimmy Stewart and explained things.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Then he was I think he was stateside. Yeah, when Kennedy was shot. And they went on full alert. They went on full military alert because nobody knew what was happening.
Right.
So he was actually flying in a B-52 that went to red alert when he was in the air. I don't know if he was a
That's
navigator.
probably the scariest.
Yeah,
That's
can you imagine?
Scariest part of his career.
And that was before.
He's got hot and heavy.
Yeah.
That was before Dr. Strangelove came out, I think, wasn't it?
Oh.
I think that was the next year. I forget. What a great movie.
Peter Sellers.
So Paul's getting an award. Does he know he's getting the award?
I think so.
Yeah, they mentioned it on the radio. I think all the candidates who are receiving it have been notified to
I'm
ensure
sure.
that they're going to
Oh
be
yeah,
there.
so they're going to be there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's only a handful this year that they're giving them to. But we won't be there. We have to post and kill at 9 o'clock Monday morning.
I hope to
play.
be there.
That's somewhere in Rensselaer County, isn't it?
Yeah, and then
It's like north of Troy someplace,
It's
up in the hills,
west,
northwest, northeast.
east of Troy,
East of
and then
Troy.
we have to go to North Greenbush in the afternoon for a performance. So
That's not too far if you're
no,
already there.
it's only about 20
Unless you
minutes
come
away.
home first.
We won't.
Yeah,
It's only
okay.
20 minutes away for there. So there are a lot of events going on. I see that Saratoga got their Memorial Day parade salvaged because a week and a half ago they announced that it was canceled.
Oh, I haven't been following
Yeah,
that.
and
Canceling the Memorial Day parade?
because they didn't have the money in the participation.
Johnstown canceled.
And then they, it's one of the members of the Masons up there got a hold of it, and he got going, and they're going to have the whole shebang. They've organized it in less than 2 weeks to do their parade. Saratoga is kind of in a pickle up there because they have a huge Flag Day parade that comes on in June, and it gets a little.
The two are too close together.
Yeah. Well, Wednesday night, Scotia had their Memorial Day parade, and they got one of the big C4s from the Air Force Base down there to do 5 flyovers.
Wow.
And the first time they came over, I could see the guy blinking.
Is that right?
He was low. I mean, you could just feel everything shaking. And it was right at 6 o'clock when the parade was kicking off. They came over.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they're taking off, it's they're not going to get that kind of height.
They came around 4 more times, and a couple times they were real low. A couple times they were a little bit higher. So it was probably their weekly training they used it for. But it was that was an hour parade down there in Scotia.
There was a neat flyover at Fenway Park on the 100th anniversary. To me, it's just amazing how they can time these things, because this plane is coming fast. Actually, it was even more complicated than that, because they had not only did they have a modern jet, they had a World War II plane appearing simultaneously with it. So you got one going at this clunk speed, and the other one going whoosh, and they both arrive at the same time, flying over the park just at the right moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, they can time those things pretty good. They know how fast that plane is going to go.
A good pilot apparently has no problem with it. Remember when the I don't know whether it was the Blue Angels or the other outfit, the Air Force outfit that was appearing in Scotia at the airport at the air show one year, and they were doing an air show in Boston or somewhere around Boston, like 10 minutes before they appeared at Scotia, and again perfectly timed. They do it there, whoop, then they go to the next one, and then they go to the next one, then they go to the next one, and
fly cross country.
Fly across the country.
Every one of them.
They're amazing pilots, just the stuff they do.
Friday, we went through Scotia to go down to Cornell's for our anniversary dinner. 60 years.
Yes, you mentioned that. 60 years.
Wow.
60 years just put up with you.
So we went. So we went to Cornell's. That's why we didn't see the flyover one.
Oh, Ziggy Purek's wife passed away, I think, since we were last here, and they had been married 71, going on 72 years.
Wow.
That's time.
That's a long time.
Yeah, for them both to survive that long.
Yeah,
I mean, up until a couple of years ago, Ziggy was still working the elections down here in the Third Ward.
Remember, you saw umpire Little League when I played. He was a good umpire. Nice guy.
Oh, absolutely. He's a peach. You know, for a Democrat.
Yeah, it was funny at the Scotia parade. They had the local politicians were there, and Tonko and his guys were up here, and then Amador and his guys were back there. I don't know how they drew straws to see who's going to go first and who's going to go second. But they were all there. It's a busy time for them.
It's always a busy time when you got 2-year terms.
Yeah. They're always on the election cycle.
Paul has been going nonstop for 30 years now. How long has it been since he first held office?
Early 80s.
I mean, he's been an assemblyman since the early 80s. Yeah, because I was still an ADA at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was on the radio today. He just amazes me. They asked him a simple question. He talked probably about 20 minutes and didn't say anything.
Well, he's mastered that.
I said, this guy is a terrific speaker because he can speak about nothing for 20 minutes.
We do it for 2 hours every week. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but we change subjects now and then.
Yeah, well, that's true. We do change the subject.
He hangs on this the whole time.
Yeah, he was amazing. Not in a good way.
Do we have to pay for him to fly up here every week for these events, or is that out of his own pocket?
No, I think he flies free with the government.
Free. He flies for free while we pay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's okay.
Exactly.
Make sure I got that right.
Well, you know, you go broke pretty quick if you're commuting from Washington. But yeah, you should.
I got to say, some of it I agree that it has to be done,
Yeah.
but
we
some
get-
of it.
Do we
Well,
get do we get reimbursed for the time
Yeah,
our travel
but
time?
you know,
for this?
the
No, we
week,
don't.
the
No.
weekend he was here at home and flew down to Washington so he could come back
So he
with
could
Air
come
Force
back
One.
with
That
it.
was that was a bit much.
Yeah.
That was a bit much. But what the heck? He's my neighbor. He was he lives up the street here, so
He does.
he was a guest at my daughter's wedding. Does a mean. The heck's the name of that dance?
Chicken. Hokey pokey.
No, I'm sure he does a good hokey pokey, but it was a blue
Waltz, a good waltz.
Not a waltz, one of those group dances.
Oh.
Electric slide.
Electric
Oh.
Why am I thinking blue? I don't know. But, yeah, electric slide. Doesn't mean electric
Yeah.
slide. I got that video somewhere. I've promised him, because he was there as a personal guest and not as a
Politician.
elected official, that I would keep it under wraps and
His
never post it on
his
YouTube.
class reunion.
But he is a
coming
good dancer. He's a hell of a good dancer, actually.
up. His class reunion is coming up, so somebody on the air said that I don't know if he was going to dance with her, and he said that he was. So
Oh, he will.
if he makes it,
Whatever you need.
I tell you, he
I don't know what year it is.
well, he graduated in '67, so it'll be 45.
45.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you get up there, you start doing them closer together. Yeah. That was John Duchesne was in that class. We'll get more on John Duchesne later. Noted presidential historian David Petrusha was in that
He was
class.
67.
Donald Rilo, the smartest guy who ever came out of Amsterdam, was in that class.
Oh, I remember him.
I don't remember him.
Donald Rilo was a really small guy.
Little guy.
I mean, when he was small in every kind of build. He was thin. He was short, and he would carry his violin back and forth to school every day. Which is how you always remember it. The violin was half the size of him. I mean, that's and he had he was the valedictorian of his class, perfect SAT scores, the 1600 SAT scores, and I think on a couple of the electives he had perfect scores as well. Went on to MIT, I believe, graduated from MIT, and then became a priest.
Really?
Yeah, and not only a priest, but like one of those like semi-cloistered orders or cloistered. Yeah, I found a little sermon that he gave on YouTube. Not long ago. Yeah, I'm just. Well, those Lithuanians were all smart. Those. Yeah.
He was smart enough to want to resign from the hustle and bustle of life.
Yeah, you kind of. There's a certain peace there that the rest of us don't have.
Yeah.
You kind of. Oh yeah, sure. They get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and all that stuff and work all day, but there's. I envy it.
They don't have this.
That's what I said.
Don't have this. So you said you went to the Common Council meeting.
Yes, I did.
How was
There
that?
was I was there. Larry Major was there.
Larry Major.
Diane Hassenbuehler and Chet. Not the rebel rouser Chet, but the gadfly, not the gadfly Chet.
Not Chet Wittroba?
No, it was the other Chet.
The other Chet.
And that was it. And I looked the budget over.
Well, yeah, you've got something to compare it to because you worked on
lot of
6 or 7 of them.
Yeah, a
right?
lot of discrepancies in there. A lot of nothing straightforward. There's they had something last year, they don't have it this year. They had something this year they didn't have last year. In the line items.
Right, with no explanation.
No explanation. The question of the contractual line item.
Yeah.
Not the line item. No, the number came up. the 4,000 line. And everybody's going, what's this? What's this? And I'm in the audience.
Are you the one who yelled it's a slush fund?
No, somebody, after I said, I says, contractual. I says, that's the line where they put everything they don't know where to put. I said, which shouldn't be. It's listed under contractual. Somebody says, what's the contract? I said, there is no contract.
It's fake.
I said, it's fake. And they said, well, what is? I said, that's another contingency fund. And then they went on to, Ron said that he wants to have the contractual line items delineated so he knows what each item they want in there. So I said, oh boy, that's going to go over good. So she says, thank you for your information. I thought she was going to tell me shut up, you know.
Ah.
Which she
Well,
couldn't.
that was probably a polite way of saying that.
No. After I got, she let me finish.
As I recall, my first grade report card contributes to class discussion is the way it
Talks too much.
Yeah, she let me finish. She didn't try to stop me or anything. And one of the other things was they were talking about the running out of money in a line item and taking it out of another fund.
right.
I said, well, that's permissible. I said, but I says, when they go to the controller and they want something they don't have any money, he asks them what fund they want to take it out of, and he
Yeah.
can transfer it. I said, that's what these transfers are.
Yeah.
That David is always bitching about. And he said, well, sometimes they tell me they don't care. I said, then you take it out of anything you want to take it out of. I said, just at the next common council meeting, I said, you present it to the council, tell them what happened, what you did.
Right.
So,
Did they cut anything from the budget? Because I saw there seemed to be a rather large tax increase projected with that budget.
according to the paper this morning, they eliminated $400,000. I don't think they did. I don't think they did, because what happened is they're counting on the contributions from retirees to the health insurance.
As income?
No, not as income, as not as a revenue. Or no, as an income. Yeah, as an income.
As revenue. Yeah.
As revenue. The last year, when they charged the retirees the 10%,
Right.
sunsets July 1.
Right.
They put in a resolution to change the local law to do away with that sunset,
Right.
so that this 10% will continue.
Right.
The alderman said no, they are not going to do that. They won't let that happen.
Right.
That it's going to sunset. So that money that they're getting right now, they're not going to get.
Well, okay, but here's a question, because we went through this last year. It seemed to me at the time, and I think my sources inside tell me that I'm correct on this, that the plan was to get people to drop out because the contribution level was so high that it wouldn't make any sense for people to stay in it.
The contribution wasn't that high. 10% of the
10% of the fake figure.
yeah, but $8,000 was the figure.
Yeah.
So they're going to pay 10%.
Yeah.
So that's $800.
Yeah.
These guys are happy to pay the $800 a year.
I don't know what they're getting for it.
They're getting the same coverage that the employees are getting.
Yeah, except that 90% of it's covered by Medicare anyway.
No, not all the retirees are eligible for Medicare.
Well, that's true. The ones who aren't eligible, obviously, that's a different situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I talked to a couple of them, and they said, "Hey, we're happy to pay the 10%. You know, if they."
But if you're over 65, or the widows particularly, I mean, the widows that were having them pay like 50% of the 8,000, which means they were getting nothing. It was costing them more to stay in it than get out. But maybe they don't realize that. Well, I guess the reason. This is preliminary to my saying, are they getting any income at all from this line item?
they're getting the 10%. and I think that's where the $400,000 is there.
So unless they extend that, it ain't going to happen.
Right, and
All
I
right.
talked to Joey. He's not going to vote to extend it. Richie said he wasn't going to vote to extend it, and I think Gina said that she wouldn't vote to extend it. So it's gone.
Right.
That part's gone. And all three of them said they would not raise the tax.
All right.
So
Where is the savings going to come from?
I have no idea.
Well, we don't even know what's in this budget. That's frankly, and we don't know that the health insurance costs are necessarily a reflection on anything.
The health insurance
because
costs-
we've seen in past budgets where the mayor had put in these huge increases in the health insurance. And remember, we talked to Patsy Bay the next day. I said, "Where did these figures come from?" He said, "They didn't come from me." Well, he's the guy who has the figures. He said, "They didn't come from me. They just made them up."
Well, the figure that they threw in there now, and I don't remember the $1.5 million or something, is the number they threw in there that he got from either
From the trust.
The trust. We don't have a trust anymore.
Well, we do. It's still in existence because
Oh, yeah,
Michael's wrapping it up.
Yeah, but that's supposedly the actual cost, and that's what they threw in there. I believe that's so they. And these people do not know. They don't even know how to look at it. You know, they question different items. They didn't do anything with the budget last night.
Right. They're only about 3 months behind schedule at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah. Next week they will bring in.
Next week, yeah.
They will bring in the department heads.
Something they could have been doing in March, April, and May.
The mayor
Should have been doing
Should
it.
have been doing
The
it.
mayor should have done it on her own.
Absolutely. You didn't need Wierzbicki's proposed budget to have the department's heads and they're going through what they're looking for in their budgets. And they've done absolutely nothing. So let's get into a discussion about the process here
Lack of.
and the lack of. Now, there was an editorial in the Recorder the other day
Yeah.
which said it's the process that's the problem. It was the reform that I put in with Michael and the people of the city of Amsterdam some years ago.
I think I was on the council when that happened. I think.
I don't think you were. No, I think that was the term you were off. Yeah.
The term I was on?
Yeah. Anyway, we had our reasons for changing the way it was done. The old way was the mayor would present the budget, then the common council would debate it, and then they would make their changes, and then the mayor would veto the changes, and then they'd meet again. And we streamlined the process actually to eliminate all the veto and the back and forth and have everybody work together for a common budget. And by doing that, we cut a month out of the process. We cut a full month out of the process so that it would be done a month earlier for the people to digest it. Well, there are valid reasons for saying that we should have kept things the old way.
I agree.
There are valid reasons for that, but they have nothing to do with the breakdown in the process.
No.
I'm constantly faced with chuckling Duchesne brothers. I ran into them the other day, and the Duke says to me,
Yeah, I can imagine.
he said, he's just laughing away. He says, "What is it you lawyers say? Res ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks for itself." And that's easy to say. But the objections that John has, and Anthony, because he believes anything John tells him, just making fun, guys. They are my favorite consultants, by the way. They really are.
They're smart guys.
They are smart guys. John's objection is that he thinks the give and take and the arguing and the disagreements and the forming
Kibitzen.
is is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And I'm not sure I disagree with him on that. That's a valid argument. But that has nothing to do with what's happened here. The Recorder editorial basically followed the res ipsa loquitur thing. The thing speaks for itself. The budget system is broken down, and they should go back the way it was. Well, you know what? That ain't the problem. The problem is that they're not doing their jobs. They're not following the procedures set forth in the charter. As G.K. Chesterton once said, it's not that Christianity has been tried and found wanting. It's said it's never been tried. And it's the same thing here, except that the new procedure, which was put into effect, back in 2004, I think, is when it was adopted. So it would have been in the 2005-2006 budget that it went into effect. It worked fine. That process for the 2 or 3 years that it was done when Joe Emanuel was mayor, and it worked when Kim Brumley was a controller, and it worked when Larry Major was a controller, and it worked the first year that Heather was a controller.
The problem with the whole thing was the whole budget process was screwed up when Ron took over, and nothing was done properly, and he tried to straighten it out.
Well, that's this year.
Yeah.
Last year it was a total breakdown, and frankly, the whole every time since Ann Thane has been mayor, it's been a breakdown because she's ignored the process. I mean, she's supposed to be the chairman of the Budget Review Board, and all she's ever done is point the finger. Well, it's not my fault. It's Common Council has to do this. Well, no. You are an equal member. You, the controller, and the 5 council members are all equal members on this board, and you're the chairman, and you're supposed to be calling the meetings.
And that's what I said that last night. I says, the mayor is the boss. If she gives them a directive,
right,
they have to follow it. And everybody looked at me like I was.
Yeah, like
But she doesn't know what to direct.
Yeah,
right.
Because they were complaining about Ron not transferring money or something. I said, that's the mayor. I said, you run to the mayor. You say, Mayor, this is what I want done. And she's to get it done.
Right.
And they...
That's it, because there is, we have a strong mayor form of government, and we have a mayor who doesn't know what she's doing.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Now, the fact of the matter is, one of the problems with the old way things were done that was kind of corrected here, that we corrected, is in the old days, contrary really to what the Recorder editorial thought. In the old days, the mayor prepared the preliminary budget, which became the permanent budget unless the Common Council changed it. In other words, he had to present a budget within the law. That's a good thing. That you start out with a balanced budget. That's a good thing. But in reality, that we never had a mayor who knew how to prepare a budget. Okay? And it is really a function of, it's really a administrative function better left to the controller, which is why we changed that. In other words, the controller would take the information from the department heads. The controller would take his or her own information with respect to outside revenue and debt and all that stuff, and so the controller would just prepare it. In the old days, with the mayor preparing it, the controller had no function in this other than to present the controller's own stuff. The controller didn't come up with the spreadsheets. The mayor's office came up with the spreadsheets.
See,
and in reality, for many, many years, Michael Chiara prepared the mayor's budget.
What I don't like about
many administrations,
the new system. What I don't like about the new system is that the controller votes on the budget. I don't think that's his function. His function is to do the books, prepare the books, to advise the council when there's a problem with the numbers. I don't think he should be voting yes. We should put this much money in this guy's line item. I don't think that's his function.
Well, the reason I don't have a problem with that is because a controller is elected citywide, and is as an elected official is responsible to the voters. Now, the real reason we were leaning in that direction in the first place is because we used to have a controller who would advise the common council, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. And then when it came to public session, would make just the opposite.
Just the recommendation.
So we were, so you know, if you're an elected official and you're given this kind of advice, do it in public. You know.
Well, yeah.
For example, I mean, how many times did we hear the controller say you have to get rid of the bus system? And then when it came time to make, we have to keep the bus system.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
We have to control the cost in the fire department, then show up wearing a fire department union shirt at the budget meetings.
One of the people that seems to be jumping back and forth is the third ward alderman, Gina. They bonded $1.3 million or $2.3 million last year for various city projects, including taking care of Dove Creek.
Right.
And I don't know how long I've been saying it. You can't use city money for a public project and
for private.
Private. And the other day, the mayor said the same thing. Finally, even though last year when they voted for this, she was for.
Yeah. Yeah, except that now they've already borrowed the money. They're paying the interest on it, and they sent the money down to the for the $100,000 dock.
Yeah. So,
by the way, FEMA is not going to pay us.
No.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
All that going to pay is for the repairs?
That's right.
No.
FEMA decided they well, first of all, they don't have any money. FEMA has no money. They've just and what they decided was because of the 2006 flood, the 100-year flood in 2006, all they were going to cover was unreimbursed flood insurance deductibles. And if you didn't have flood insurance after the 2006 flood, too bad. So I don't think anything's come out of City Hall yet. But all this money, remember they were expecting to get reimbursed for the missing docks, and
ain't
going to happen.
Well, Gina now.
So we just borrowed $100,000 out of the Dove Creek project, and Lord, where did the tent money come from?
I don't know. Gina is now in favor of the city repairing the Dove Creek because her sister works for the hospital.
Oh, now come on.
And Giuliani is pressuring her.
Where is the problem? Where is the what were they planning on repairing in Dove Creek?
Putting up new flood walls.
From where to where?
Or from the length of from Studwell
from where the Studwell Hill starts.
From Studwell Avenue down to West Main Street. And she says, we have to repair those walls because if we don't, we're going to lose the bridge. And if we lose the bridge on Guy Park Avenue,
we lose the bridge,
you can't get to the hospital. So she's going to vote to do that with city money.
Well, that is not unlike what just happened in Schoharie County. They're borrowing $24 million to shore up parts of Schoharie Creek on private property, and they don't have the money, but they pass it. So it's the same idea, using public money to fund projects that are on private property.
Well, now, I mean, there's an argument that can be made with and I suppose the bridges is
for the public good.
Yeah, and it's one thing to be shoring up somebody's backyard. It's quite another to do what they did on the south side, which is to build a flood wall that prevents the overflow from going through the neighborhood. And I'm not sure what the extent of this project is.
That was a federal job, though.
But I should point out that you live pretty damn close to the Dove Creek yourself, and so you're arguing against your own interest here to a certain extent. Not to mention some of your friends.
I lost 2 hot water heaters, and my cellar flooded. I don't have flood insurance. I asked the city, I said, "You're going to come down and do it?" I said, "If you're going to fix Dove Creek for the hospital and those people there, then come over and fix my property."
So they're setting a bad precedent.
Oh, definitely. I'm not, if they go through with this thing and the taxes go up $300, my tax was $300 to fix the Dove Creek. You know, that's.
Now, let's get back to this tent. They had the junior prom down there or something a couple of weeks ago. Now this looks to me like it looks exactly like the tent they used to have there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a replacement because the other one got blown down.
Well, that's my point. Has everybody forgotten that the other one got a good wind came along and blew it into the river and destroyed it?
Was it a windstorm or what?
Yeah, it was a windstorm.
It wasn't the flood that took
No, it wasn't the flood. It was a windstorm. It was a windstorm. Picked it up and then we paid. Remember the incredible amount of overtime we had to pay for the firemen to go down there and pull it out of the river. And we tried to charge it to the tried to charge it to the Waterfront Foundation, and they said we haven't got any money. That's when we first found out that that all that great machinations about going outside the city to take care of yeah. That's how the city got stuck with that park. All of it was done without any city approval, any city involvement, other than the city sublet the land to the Waterfront Foundation, which was supposed to be self-financed. Nothing. So they took care of their friends, and then it was when they were done. It was.
I was on the council when they did a couple projects down there, and I was checking the bills, like I did.
All right.
And there was a couple items in there. I says, "What is this?" So I went to the Waterfront Foundation, and I says, "Show me the bills for." This was for the docks.
Right.
So my brother had built docks up in on Sagandaga because he owns a marina up there at the time. So I says, "Pete," I says, "what's the cost of these docks?" "Oh, Jim," he says, "they're very little." I says, "Well, what do you mean very little?" Well, he gave me a price. So I called the company who made the docks for the city, and I asked them the price. I didn't tell them who I was. I said,
right.
I want to build 4 docks or 5 docks, whatever it was. I think 5 docks. I says, this length and this wide, and they gave me a price. And they said, "Oh," he says, "by the way," he says, "if you want to see something just like that, go to Amsterdam."
And how was that pricing compared to what the city, what you were being asked to pay?
The city was being asked to pay, according to the bills, that there were no bills.
Yeah.
There was $85,000 was being taken out of the fund for the waterfront. Their bills were $30,000. I went to Kim Brumley. "Where is this money going, Kim?" I said, "Why is $30,000 now $85,000? I said, "What's going on?" And she's all check. I'll check. Big meeting. They called me, "Jim, oh, that was because we added light poles and we added this, we added that." We put it all on one invoice.
And called it docks.
Yeah. Yeah. I says, "Something's wrong here." I said, "Something's wrong." At the same time, we had 2 officials of the Waterfront Commission saying that they were unpaid. I asked for paperwork. They were both getting paid. They advertised in the paper that it was unpaid positions.
Yeah.
The 2 guys were getting paid. So I said, "Well," I called the newspaper and I explained some of this, but to no avail.
We were Amsterdammed again, huh?
Yeah.
Wasn't Ann Thane involved with that?
I'm not sure.
She was at one time.
I don't know. I don't think she was involved at that time. I think that's when Nadler and Perillo and.
Oh yeah. She was.
Was she there?
She was there up to a point. I think maybe it was just before she went to the museum, or
I think
something
Nadler
like
was
that.
Chairman at the time.
Yeah.
An unpaid position at $5,000-6,000 a year. So
Well, I mean, I distinctly remember calling having a meeting in the mayor's office with Mayor Emanuel, and I think it was the then chairman of the commission, it wasn't Doug, the Waterfront Foundation, to find out, just what the status of it, because I think it was when this overtime bill for the fire department came up, what kind of funds they had, because there was a story that they had $500,000 in some kind of government grant, and we wanted to, what's the status? Who's running what? Because there was there was nothing on paper. Everything was just okay, wink, 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 and Saratoga Associates and all this stuff, and the city somehow always ended up being responsible for paying the bills without having title to anything, and absolutely refused to tell us anything. It's a private foundation. We don't have to tell you anything. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Except you at least. Then I get a call from the Canal Corp one day, as corporation counsel, and they said, we were just down doing an inspection of your Riverlink Park, and we're startled to find a restaurant building there, and I think maybe when that tent area had been paved over, which had not been done before. I think that was part of the park project. And how do you explain that? I said, well, let me go to the files, and I tried to find the history of the thing, and in fact it turned out that they had. I think they had asked the state and been denied the request to put up the restaurant, and they did it anyway.
I remember when the contract came up from the Canal Corporation, the city to sign, and I looked it over, and I wasn't happy with it. So I called the Canal Corp, and I told the girl, I forget what her name, and she said, she says, I says, I'm not happy with it. She said, we can change things in there. So I called, Cortez was the attorney then, and Duchessi. He says, you can't change anything. He says, that's a standard contract. I says, no. I says, we can change. And that's when I called the Canal Corp. So I says, please, call Mr. Cortez and set up an appointment when you can come up here. So she did. So that she made an appointment to come up. They're going to meet with the council. And I said, I have, I think, 10 or 15 questions and concerns that I have. And she said, okay. She says, we'll review them when we get there. So at the same time, I called Cortez and told him that she was going to call to come up. The next day, the newspaper said that the Corporation Council contacted something to the effect they were going to. He called a meeting. He says. I said, what the hell? I don't care.
Right.
We get to the meeting. First thing, Bill Wills jumped up. He's going to be the first. I says, just a minute, Bill. I says, I asked them to come here. I said, I think I should go first. So I gave the whole list that I had, and he was pissed because he has some of the same questions.
Well,
they did change. I think they did change 4 or 5 of the things that I had questioned that they said they could change. These are things that Cortez says no. He says he can't do anything about it. I says, how many contracts have the city signed where they just sign a contract without looking at it?
how many of the Common Council approved without ever even turning the page?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
The one I used to do.
let me just explain what the relationship is. Canal Corp owns the property that Riverlink Park is on. The city leases the property from Canal Corp and then subleases part of it back to the Waterfront Foundation. And the lines that where it leases it back to the Waterfront Foundation include the the bandstand area, and I'm not sure whether the docks are included or whether that was the city's responsibility. It was a carefully drawn line. I don't remember what all the reasons were. There's supposed to be, if there's income from the property, the state is supposed to get a percentage of it.
Yep.
That's why they were really startled to find the restaurant there.
They weren't getting their
They weren't getting anything out of it, and hadn't approved it, and could have ordered it torn down. But Taco was still in the assembly then, and the next thing you know, Taco makes a couple of phone calls, and all of a sudden the Canal Corp doesn't want to pursue anything anymore. So that was the end of that. But actually, Taco was controlling the Riverlink Park as a personal fiefdom, really, and the city had no control over it whatsoever. To the extent that when the Schenectady Symphony came to play one year,
2 years.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, but I'm thinking of the first time when Joe was mayor. Joe brings his family down for it was a beautiful summer night. The girls were still little then; their pretty little dresses, and so the first family of Amsterdam is there. Do you know that he did not even get acknowledged? His presence wasn't even acknowledged because Taco was running the show. Taco gets introduces this one and that one, and the orchestra leader makes sure to thank Taco for everything he's doing. And here's the mayor of the city of Amsterdam. All they have to do is acknowledge him, let him come up and say, welcome everybody on behalf of the city of Amsterdam. Wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it because he was the enemy.
The other side, yeah.
At that point in time, Taco was holding regular meetings with lead Democrats in the county and members of the Democratic members of the Common Council, like every week, to go over what they should be doing to fight Emmanuel.
Yeah. Oh, here comes Rob.
Is he here?
Haslin. Yeah.
Which way is he coming? Is he coming this way?
He's going to climb over the rail.
All right, you here? Hey.
I brought presents.
All right. Can you climb over this fence, or you want me to move it?
No, I should.
I mean, you're a military guy. You should be able to do this stuff, right?
Former military guy.
Robert Van Hassel, our city historian, is about to leap over the fence. You got to come in tight with Gavin here, and we have the coffee ready for you.
Good. With no orange juice, huh?
Well, you can have. You want orange?
No,
You can have orange juice. It's not plugged in, so it's probably not as warm as it was a little while ago. I got,
you guys on or off?
I got some. Yeah, we're on. We've got French vanilla. So listen, we're kind of tapped out, complaining about stuff. So let me make sure. Yeah, you're on camera. Good. You got some. Oh, relax for a second. We'll complain a little bit while you
get a couple.
Just admiring that.
And so that's
house.
all. And that's why we should do away with the city historian's office. Okay.
Even the firewall or the seawall, where the docks are, city's responsibility. Even though they built them, it's the city's responsibility.
Yeah.
Everything down in that park is the city responsibility. The Canal Corp doesn't want anything.
Want some more coffee there, Jim?
No, I still got some there.
Okay, let me make this out of the way. All right, how are you?
Good.
Have you caught your breath?
I did.
All right, he had to leap over the fence that's out, just outside.
I come around the porch.
We have a keep the kid and the dog inside fence on the porch here. So coming up.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Reluctantly.
Two members of HAL here, the Historic Amsterdam League, or the Crazy Computer from 2001.
Yeah. Brought you all copies right
Woohoo!
hot off the press.
All right, Amsterdam South
You get
Side.
an author's copy.
From Port Jackson to Via Ponte.
And you get a technical reader's copy.
And this is great.
Oh, wow.
You know what? You check the backside because, and I picked that picture out. Does that remind you of somebody? Put a gray beard on that, and does that look like somebody? I thought it looked a lot like Gavin.
I'm trying to.
Wow,
Big smile.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big smile, yeah. Wow.
Wow.
I should have brought you some forms for the paver bricks. We just got those out too.
Oh, this is cool. Paper. They're going to be a
Going to help
Like
finish
one of
off.
those engraved walkways where
Yep.
you can. Cool. That's one way to do it.
That's-
Anyway, yeah, coming up on June the 2nd is the tour of historic Port Jackson. I love this picture. I've seen this on the internet, and I think we got a copy at the museum. This from a postcard? I think it is, right?
Yeah.
Of the canal basin as it existed, prior to 1913 or 15, whatever it was, when it was abandoned. Beautiful color. That really came out nice. Is this in your book? This picture?
Yes. Black and white version of it. It's one Jerry and I always get a kick because when we do these every year, we get to pick some of the color postcards from our book that we couldn't publish in color and finally get them out in color.
Yeah.
Bob, before I forget,
Mhm.
I was asked the other day, they said they saw a poster that said Sir William Johnson Park on West Main Street.
I saw that. Where did I see that?
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah, we talked about.
I saw the reference. I saw a reference to it. Where very recently? Where did you see the reference?
Well, my son called me. He said that somebody told him they saw a poster that said there was something going on in Sir William Johnson Park on West Main Street.
Never heard of it.
I said, I will contact our historian.
Well,
I said, we'll get to the bottom of it.
Here's an interesting. This might have something to do with it.
I thought maybe it was
Just a mistake for Guy Park Manor.
Gar Park Man. That's what I thought.
But somebody told me, and I think it was when we were down in the museum, that there used to be a ballpark down there at the far west end of the Guy Park Manor.
Yes. Softball field.
You remember that?
Yes.
Really?
When I was a kid, yeah, they used to play softball down there. Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that recent.
Absolutely.
And that might have been what the reference was. I don't know.
Or it may be Old Port Johnson has got something coming up where they're not.
Well, that's the other. We forget that that West Main Street used to extend into Fort Johnson, and it had its own something of a downtown, which is all before my time. But not before your time, Jim, because
I remember
you're older than dirt.
There was an ice cream parlor on West Main Street in Fort Johnson. I think it was just right where the corner is going to up the curves, Fort Johnson Avenue.
Yeah.
I remember that when I was coming to Amsterdam.
Yeah, that arterial was built just before we came back here. It was like in the late 50s, 58, 59, something like that. So,
And that's what.
I mean, there used to be gas stations and everything else that got ripped up along the way. And I'm sure stuff on both sides of the street.
So that Old Port Johnson is doing, they're having an open house since they won't be able to run a regular season. And that's coming up, I think, sometime in about a week.
I think on a Wednesday. This coming Wednesday, I believe, yeah. Well, tell us about it, but not enough of plugging Fort Johnson. That's outside our bailiwick. Tell us about your South Side tour here.
Actually, it's a series of tours. June the 2nd, Saturday, starts at 10 o'clock. All tours start and end at the Our Lady of Mount Carmel parking lot. So you don't have to drive. If you want to, you can. We've arranged it so that the tours repeat. The first two tours that set off at 10 o'clock are a general overview of Port Jackson and its history. Or you can go down to an open house at the First Reformed, the old Dutch Reformed Church, and go and take a look at the interior there. Then it flips, and around 11:30, the next one takes off, and that'll be a choice of either an in-depth tour of the Armory or a tour of the old canal and Bushore Railroad bed. And then it flips again so that you can see any of the tours, all of the tours, and arrange it so that you either have lunch beforehand downtown, Port Jackson, or stay for dinner on the south side afterwards. Every tour is conducted by either a city historian, former county historian, local author, or an expert in their field, and it's all free. Plus,
Good price. That's a good price. So let's throw the poster up here for the camera here. There we go. There's the poster, which you'll probably see all over town.
hopefully, the south side will rise again. Save your Port Jackson dollars.
That's right.
And at the Mount Carmel start point, we'll have a little information booth down by Dolce's Bakery. You'll be able to purchase the booklet you all are looking at, which I think is pretty amazing. It's professionally printed, 32 pages, chock full of articles, no ads except for the one on the back for the Amsterdam Veterans Memorial. $5. And then also we're publishing a new series. Every year we publish a new series of postcards to go along with the new booklet. And this year it's 6 views of the South Side, the Veterans Memorial Park, the Armory, a couple of other locations. Oh, the Great Jewett Mansion. And then also the post office between 10 and 1 will be at Mount Carmel to do a special cancellation, Port Jackson station cancellation. It'll be the first time in probably about over 130 years that you'll be able to mail something from Port Jackson, New York. So we're looking forward to it. We had great success last year with the Heart of Amsterdam tour, and our goal here is that last year, this year, going into the future, each year we'll do a different topic, a different area, produce a different booklet, a different set of postcards, a different cancellation, so that in 10 years you'll have, in essence, a bookshelf of Amsterdam history.
This really printed up well. This is, and it's extensive. Wonderful. Not to mention, it's got an excerpt from my upcoming book in it.
A very good one too. The Boys of Company G. Yeah, Dorothy Domkowski and Jackie Murphy were our main editors. And of course, well, that's another thing I'm pleased with this year. In addition to having the regular HAL people writing, we had an article from you. We have an article from Ann Piccone, who's also a member. But as the museum director,
I'm a member in spirit. You know,
we made you an honorary member.
What was? Somebody said to Winston Churchill, "You're not exactly a pillar of the church, Winston." And he says, "No, I'm a flying buttress. I support the church mightily from the outside." It's only Churchill. Only he could come up with something like that off the top.
The weather's supposed to be very good for the.
I hope so.
Yeah, we checked already, and it's supposed to be sunny, high 70s, low humidity.
Good, because I'll be working up a sweat walking all over the place.
This on June 2nd?
Yes.
Oh, you got it all that far in advance?
Yeah.
I tried to rope Gavin into writing the education piece, but at least he gave me a technical accuracy read on it. But this is one of the things I like. You're writing on what you know, which is World War II.
Yep.
Ann's writing on Walter Elwood. Tricia Shaw wrote the article on the canal from Schoharie Crossing State Historic Site. So we've got a lot of different people with a lot of different expertise. And plus it covers things like, if you had ever read Catherine Strobeck's Port Jackson.
Old Port Jackson, or
Old
whatever
Port
it was called, yeah.
That only went up to about the Civil War. We take it up further, we include modern stuff, and then little things that you may not have known about. We had so much material, in fact, that we had to take some of it out.
Had to edit.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's the technical term for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
An editor's job is to edit, yeah.
we'll be posting it on our website. There's at least 4 to 6 more pages of material we just couldn't fit in, including my story about, somewhat ripped off from you, on the plane crash.
Oh, well, completely ripped off from me because I gave it to Cudmore.
And I added some misinformation and then corrected it.
Well, that's right. You corrected. Yeah, you added some information to it. That's true. Yeah, it's not completely ripped off.
Did
from
you
me.
know that the plane that crashed was, not only was it a UC-78B, but that's the plane that Sky King flew.
Whoa! Out of the
see,
blue of the western sky.
Sky King. Oh.
Sky King. Yeah, there was a show. It was on the air for 2 years, and then in reruns for 25.
The original Songbird was a Bamboo Bomber, C-78.
No
Same plane that crashed on the south side.
Son of a gun.
Out of the blue of the western sky. Sky King.
He's Penny,
And
Yeah.
it's Penny.
who was definitely blonde.
Yeah, was she ever?
She was what?
Blonde.
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 Yeah.
Like, very blonde.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Wow.
the morning.
I have not seen. I can't remember the last time I saw that show. I know it was on nonstop for about 25 years, but then since then it's kind of disappeared.
You can probably get it on DVD sometime.
Yeah, well, I'm sure probably for $1.
Yeah. And it's probably also on one of those little, like, Nick at Night channels or something. Or maybe we're getting too old. Maybe they're not broadcasting those shows from the 50s anymore.
Well, you'd think with 120,000 stations that somebody would be, for a while back in the 70s or so, there were, I think it was back when A&E was actually Arts and Entertainment. They used to run constantly it was the 80s actually. The old Jack Benny shows, the Burns and Allen shows, I Married Joan, all those iconic sitcoms from the 50s. Now you rarely see them. The Jewish channel, the new Jewish channel, has got the Jack Benny on and some old Dinah Shore shows and the Goldbergs. Remember the Goldbergs? They went from radio to television.
Yeah. Some of those old programs that really what got me started in history. I mean, there was one, for example, called The Great Adventure. I used to stay up and watch that. It was all stories from American history. And Alcoa Presents. You remember that one?
Alcoa Presents.
No.
Also known as One Step Beyond.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was an interesting one too. That was before the Twilight Zone.
I love the old shows. I saw a little piece of Captain Video the other day. Boy, and how about Rocky Jones Space Ranger? You remember that one?
I do.
That was on in reruns for a long time. Yeah.
And that was like...
With the kind of cartoon rocket goes, kind of shaking on the string as it goes up. In the
right. They'd have the prop guy go out and buy bed springs and bed frames at a local salvage store or something so they could make them look like alien technology. It was very, very cheaply produced. I think it was live too, wasn't it original?
Oh, I'm sure it was when it first came on, sure. And then Captain Midnight became Jet Jackson for no particular reason that I could understand. The show started out as Captain Midnight, and then they changed the name to Jet Jackson. I don't know why.
Ovaltine was the sponsor.
Yeah. And Sid Melton played Ichabod Mudd on the side, the kind of comic sidekick. And I remember watching a rerun. It must have all been reruns, where a show that I had seen where they referred to him as Captain Midnight, all of a sudden they referred to him as Jet Jackson. There must be a good story there someplace. Somebody must have...
Copyright infringement.
Yeah, it was probably somebody didn't renew the copyright or something crazy thing like that, and they had to change it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or else the title reverted for some reason. I don't know. Jet Jackson.
Okay.
That was a neat show.
I don't remember that one.
About Buster Crabbe with the French Foreign Legion. Somebody in the French Foreign Legion, yeah.
Cubby was the kid.
Cubby! Yeah.
Cubby was his boy.
There was always a boy sidekick in all those shows. Circus Boy, Casey Jones. Remember Casey Jones had the kid sidekick?
Yeah.
Rin Tin Tin.
Boy Rusty. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what got me going on the Army.
Fury, the story of the horse and the boy who loved him.
Yeah. And that was Marshall Dillon's brother.
That's right. It was right. Yeah, Peter Graves. Peter Graves played Jim.
I never liked...
no. Was it?
Yeah, it was Jim.
He was Jim.
I never liked Flicka, though. Flicka was the other one.
My Friend Flicka.
That was kind of a...
Was that a girly show? That was a girly show.
Yeah. My Friend Flicka.
My Friend Flicka.
Yeah, I didn't...
But Fury, that was top notch.
Wyatt Burp and Wild Bill Hiccups.
Wild Bill Hickok and remember Annie Oakley? They had them at the same time.
Buffalo Bill Jr.
Oh.
You know why I like was the Tales of the Texas Rangers.
Yes.
Because they'd go the old ones and then they do the contemporary ones. And I've even got some of them on DVD. I'll bring them up for you.
Wow. I don't remember the contemporary.
Yeah, they had cars and that. And
they start out with the Eyes of Texas and the state troopers that all come out from the side of the streets.
Band of Dirty Men. No, Sturdy Men. Not Dirty Men. Yeah, it was.
God, there was great shows.
Yeah, there were a number of them. They were really quite good when you think back about it.
Yeah.
What was
you got everything done in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
What was it? The Disney show, The 9 Lives of, I don't know.
Thomasina?
No, Afraid of Vodka or something like that about this. That was great.
We didn't get ABC when that was on.
It was on NBC at the time.
Was it?
Before they switched.
I don't remember seen that.
ABC came in very, very
They were out of
badly in this
Utica. They were out
area.
of Utica.
No, that was NBC. They were NBC.
NBC.
It was only on UHF for a long time. That was why. Channel 35.
That what the number was?
Yeah,
We
Channel
were really
35.
snowy.
Yeah.
Which I thought was
Terrible.
strange in the summertime.
Yeah, so we really didn't catch much of Leave It to Beaver the first time around till they moved to the VHF channel.
The nastiest expression ever said on 1950s television was from that program.
What was that?
It's June to her husband. Ward, don't you think you were a little hard on the beaver last night? I'm not kidding. Made it past the censorship.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then was the Soupy Sales was constantly getting into trouble with the things he used to say.
Yeah, we didn't. Soupy, we had
You
our
didn't get
get
it?
Soupy up this way.
I vaguely remember him. I was watching a clip of that yesterday too. Somebody posted, I think it was the Admiral, had posted a clip of stuff from the 50s that were on WNEW in New York, and including some local stuff from WNEW.
Glendora?
Well, Glendora was our. She was
local.
up here. She was
Yeah.
local. But yeah, there's Soupy Sales stuff. He was wacky.
He was the one that had to keep getting hit with the pies, right?
Right.
That was the
Right.
thing.
You
Remember when they called him as an expert on that pie throwing in that case where the guy said it was free speech when he hit the politician in the face with the pie, and they called Soupy Sales as a witness as to the freedom of expression.
He used to get thrown off the air on a regular basis.
Really? Yeah.
He used to had this. It was a weird mix of adult and kid humor. He did this business where he had a special guest behind in a closet door, and he'd open up the door every day and he'd say, "Ooh, let's see who's behind the door today. Maybe it's a naked lady." And it would turn out. He'd say it almost every day, and it would turn out to be the guest star of the day. But what happened one day is one of the drunk hands got, one of the stagehands got drunk, and they actually got a naked lady, and they put her behind the door. And he didn't get thrown off for opening the door. He got thrown off for opening the door, closing it, and then opening it again. That's what they tossed him off for. That, and then there was the time he told all the kids, at night go into Daddy's, where he hangs up his pants, get out his wallet, take out all those little green pictures with the presidents on them, and send them to me. And kids did. That caused him a problem too. He was constantly in hot water. Or Groucho Marx.
Well, Lord
yeah.
knows he used to do about 2 hours worth of program for every half hour that they put on the air. Yeah.
I remember he got tossed from.
Word.
He always got away with it. Well, they were always able to cut it out. That's why I would love to see the outtakes from that show. Oh my! Have you ever seen the spoof they did of that on the Jack Benny show, where Jack Benny comes on in disguise to appear because he wants to win the $25 from the duck, and. It's hilarious because Groucho's being Groucho, and of course he's going way off script all the time, and Benny's trying to keep up with him. It starts. Just say the secret word, and you'll win $50. It's something you have around the house, and then of course Jack Benny will be working into the dialogue, curtains and ashtrays and tables.
He didn't get it though.
Oh, eventually he did, yeah. But then the big money was for how old is that skinflint Jack Benny? And he just pauses for the longest time. He's clinching, because it's either the money or telling the truth. And finally, he just says, 39. But it's wonderful. The two of them, at the peak of their form, just absolutely perfect. It runs 5-6 minutes, I think. It's on YouTube. Don't miss it. It's absolutely hilarious. Oh God, Sid Caesar.
Shows.
He's still alive, isn't he?
I think so.
I think he
Really?
is. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, he was one of the funniest, the most naturally funny guys ever around. But brilliant genius, comic genius, and he's done virtually nothing for half a century. Yeah,
Emma Jean Coco with him.
Imogene Coco. Well, and how about Ernie Kovacs? Lord, that was a funny show.
My mother used to like watching Mr. Peepers. With,
Mr. Peepers with Wally Cox.
Wally Cox, yeah. The most nondescript star ever. He just...
And Arnold Stang had a show about the same time, and they were the same kind of show.
and what did he advertise? What was his advertisement? Chunky chocolate. Oh, chunky chocolate. What a chunk of chocolate. That was Arnold Stang.
Chunkies.
Yeah.
Chunky.
I haven't had a chunky in a long time.
Yeah.
Do they still make those?
Yes, they do. Yes, they
Do
do.
they?
Yeah.
We should have some for the next show.
I noticed
Yeah,
they
they're
brought back
good.
Charleston shoes. That was one I had
Yeah.
not seen for a long
I
time.
don't like
You didn't like Charleston?
I don't like
You
Charleston.
got to put them in the refrigerator and crack them up. That was one of my father's favorite candies from the 1930s when they brought it back.
old.
And yeah, it's been around forever.
That's why they're... And some of the old ones you don't even have to put in the refrigerator, break them there.
Yeah.
Stay on them. They're good.
Especially if you got them in the place I used to go shopping. So, you guys got any good Southside stories or Southside things I should look at or point out on when I'm doing a tour?
Well, I mean, geez, you kind of took all the steam out of me by printing my story. you have to read the book.
A couple of people have been asking me, when is the book going to come out?
It's gonna
My
be
book?
good.
Yeah,
Your
that's a
book.
good question.
My
Do you
sister's
have a good
here.
answer?
Huh?
Do you have a good answer?
No, I don't have a good answer. This year,
This year.
but I think it's still several months away.
My sister's here from Arizona. She lived on the south side for quite a few years, so she'll really appreciate looking at this afternoon.
I've been deep into the Gert Sanford story. Really found some good stuff. I got some details on her CIA adventures, or OSS adventures. Actually, who knows if they were OSS adventures? She got taken prisoner, but I got all the details of it from a book on lady spies from World War II. That
Did you ever
Came
figure
in
out
with
how she got into the OSS? We were talking about that.
not sort of. She, it's funny. She gets to Washington, and she doesn't have a college education, so it precluded her from doing a lot of things. But so she starts out as a volunteer for the Red Cross and blah blah blah. But I think it was a social connection that got her in as a secretary. OSS, and she quickly jumped up the ladder. She knew everybody. I mean, between the wars, she used to hang out with Zelda and Scott Fitzgerald in Paris and things like that. I mean, I'm surprised she didn't show up in Woody Allen's movie. So she knew everybody. And your suggestion that she probably knew Donovan is probably correct. I mean, she knew everybody.
Well, there was that joke from World War II where people said that OSS didn't stand for Office of Strategic Services; it stood for "Oh So Social."
Oh
Because
yeah.
basically.
Oh yeah.
It was all people who
Oh
knew each
yeah,
other.
yeah. And she gets to, when they transfer her to London, she immediately runs into one of Laddie's polo pals, who's some kind of officer, and he's got some kind of apartment she can share half of, and all this stuff, and then she's throwing parties for the American ambassador to Britain and things like. I mean, this was just the way it was, and there's an interesting thing in this book I was just reading where Donovan was really upset when he found out she'd been captured, because she really had been going out on her own, and he referred to, he was a little terrified. He referred to her as a loose cannon, and she was liable to say anything. What she did was she charmed a German officer who was in charge of her custody. He had been educated in America. I think he went to Columbia, probably knew a lot of her social circle, I guess, from New York. And he got stuck in Germany when the war broke out, and made an officer and blah blah blah. But he was kind of pro-American guy, and this was towards the end of the war anyway. So they were all, and he's
their bets.
he's a guy who ultimately arranged to get her out, to get across the Swiss border, and it took several steps to do that, But yeah, she just charmed him. I mean, she's supposedly a prisoner, but she's a prisoner in this castle with all these other people. And
you know what's interesting? I just did a tour the other day with the Amsterdam Reeds. We went into Albany.
Oh yeah, you went to the Slater.
The Slater and the World War II Memorial,
Yeah.
and the Women's Veterans Memorial. And you and I both enjoyed that book very much, Unbroken. And the Japanese captor in that book, who spent a lot of time in America, is so totally different than this German captor who had spent a lot of time in America. It's just totally different reactions.
Right.
And
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the German guy was human.
yeah, and the Japanese guy was
just
a monster.
Was just a robot.
That was a good tour, by the way. We had 48 people.
Oh, good.
I don't know
One bus.
Yeah, one bus. We had one of those big brown coaches, and
Wow.
just a few days before, I had 54 kids from the Barclay School going through City Hall, and I don't know who were more boisterous and jumping up and down in their seats more, the third graders or the older people who went to Amsterdam Reeds. They had a great time.
The Slater tour is a good tour. It's yeah.
I had a chance. I haven't seen Tim Rizzuto, who's kind of like ship's master. He's in charge of the recreation of the ship and the restoration of it. I haven't seen Tim since the day we rode the Slater in to Albany. And
Oh, you were involved with that.
I was the guy who introduced the city of Albany to the Slater
Wow.
and started getting the deal going. And it was good. They've done a tremendous amount of work on that ship from the way it used to be. Have you ever been?
Yes. Dan's the only one left, right?
No, there are two left in North America, but the one in Texas is not in the water. She was put into a copper dam and it was filled in. So it's kind of like the difference between like the HMS Victory in England, Nelson's flagship. She's in the dirt, whereas our Constitution in Boston is still in the water. So our Constitution is still a commissioned warship, the U.S. Navy.
Now, our late friend Jimmy Marks, his son Billy was a commander of the Constitution
Really?
at one time. He's on the brass plate inside the ship there, and Jimmy and his wife, I believe, also were on that cruise several years ago when the Constitution was under sail, and went out into the harbor, turned around, and came back under sail, which
Wow.
That was interesting. The Navy actually had to go to the Coast Guard and say, teach us how to sail.
well, yeah, that was going to be my question for you: is how the heck do they do that? I mean, who remembers how to do this?
Well, they've got the Eagle that the Coast Guard sails from here to Australia. My niece was commander of it on the way back.
No kidding.
Yeah, she lives up in Sagadaga. She runs the marina up there.
I can't remember what the name was originally, but we took it from the Germans as reparations. It was their naval training vessel. And for some reason, Annapolis didn't want it, so New London said, we'll take it. And she's a fully rigged ship. It's
well, I guess there's still a lot of tall ships and such available, so there are people who know how to sail these things, but I can't imagine there are too many people in the Navy who ordinarily would know how to do it.
Well,
And
the
when they
Coast Guard
Yeah.
sail the tall ship.
and when they do, when they have crews on the, they have regular crews on the Constitution, on the Constitution, but they're not trained to sail it. But that's not. That's not what they do.
Because it doesn't move but twice a year. They take it
Yeah,
out.
they set the guns off a couple of times a day and give tours. We did it last year, I think. We did the tour, and
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling.
the girl who was doing it, I forget what her rank was. It was her first tour, so we were the guinea pigs.
Did you get back?
We didn't go anywhere. It's not. You don't go out. You just tour the ship and leave.
the docent I had the other day on the Slater was brand new also, and so occasionally she'd get hit with a question. I didn't want to step on her toes. She'd get hit with a question by one of the tour goers that she didn't have an answer for, like why do they call a quarter deck, or what's a poop deck or something like that.
Those are good questions.
So I would help out, and at the end she was like, "How do you know all this stuff? Were you in the Navy?" And I was like, "No, I was in the Army." But I said, see this big picture you have of the Slater coming into Albany?
That's me.
All those blue dots down there? I'm that little green dot right there. High up on the weather deck. Actually,
Why do they call it the poop deck? Where you go when you pooped out? The rest? Like
no,
tired poop,
actually,
or it's the other kind?
the poop deck is in the back. Where you would go is up front, and that's why you hear sailors always talk about the head, the bone of the head. That's because originally the two timbers that came up there were called the Knights Heads. They're two major timbers, and while the rest of the crew had to go in more exposed positions, the bathroom for the Knights on board were in this little enclosed area just off the bow where the Knights Heads timbers came up. And so that's why it kept going from that way. Quarterdeck gets its name because in an earlier sailing vessel, the rear castle got shortened and was only a quarter, didn't extend the whole deck. And the quarterdeck then became known as officers' territory. So that was where enlisted men didn't go, because that portion, that raised quarterdeck in the rear, was where the officers were to be left alone.
It is I, Ensign Pulver.
You're right. And poop comes from the Dutch, but and it has to do with a sail, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But she was young,
And port and starboard?
Well, port and starboard is starboard comes from starboard, the Scandinavian, which means steering board, because before we had rudders on line in the middle of the ship, it was off to one side.
Off to the right side.
Off to the right side, facing the bow, and
and you couldn't pull into port, or you'd break the steering board
right.
off.
So that's why the other side was port. It's funny, and I wrote an article about the day the Slater came in, and I was there with my then girlfriend, who was Regina from Argentina, and I told her
that would have made a great song in the 30s.
The article is called Regina and Her Technicolor Dreamboat, because when I called her up and said, "You want to come?" she was like, "Oh, all those sailors, all those little boys in those sailor suits in a big boat." And I was like, "Look, two things. One, you got to dress warmly. And two," because this was October and went out on the river, I said, two, it's not a boat, it's a ship. And so what I forgot is that she was actually the insurance agent for the guy who owned all the tugs in New York City. So she'd been out on the water a few times. But when she came up, she was wearing this very short red dress, black boots, and when we got to the ship, I thought the ship was going to list over. Because when all Commodores, Admiral, everybody's running over to be her destroyer escort. And on the way down, she was kidding me. She was going, "Port, yes. Starboard, no. Boat, yes." When we got there, and everybody's like following her around and wants to show her everything, she turns to me and goes, "Sheep, no?" And I go, "Are you talking about the crew or the vessel?" Yeah. So I get back to state headquarters later, and this naval officer comes up to me, and I thought he's going to congratulate me because I was involved in getting the Slater up here. He just blows right past me, and he says, "You must have been the woman who was on the Slater today." And she goes, "It's a hell of a boat." And he goes, "Yeah, it certainly is."
Didn't correct her.
No.
It's Fleet Week in New York this week.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
Oh, I missed that. I used to fire the salute from the battery with the Veteran Corps of Artillery from the War of 1812. They have a couple of pack howitzers, like the ones on the Southside Park.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd chunk off the salutes for each of the nations as they would come in. It gets a little hard, with all that smoke and haze, to see whether that's the Italian flag or the Mexican flag or the Irish flag at a distance. So I used to be the guy with the binoculars going, "Oh, fired that one. Oh, okay, he's good to go. That's a Mexican Corvette." And it's a lot of fun.
We did a tour of a Coast Guard vessel in Boston last fall, I guess, fairly recently. and it's across the river from the Constitution. And ooh, boy, the guns on that Coast Guard vessel would blow that Constitution right out of the water if one of my kids got a hold of it. I'll tell you. Very interesting. And we were, I guess we must have been there. Did they lower the flag at sunset? Whatever it is. So the sailor was holding the flag for a long time, and we kind of stood there waiting for the flag lowering ceremony, and it just wasn't taking place. So we finally left. But what he stood there at attention for the longest time, holding I guess we'll call it a rope, holding the rope and
Lanyard? The lanyard.
the lanyard, and he was waiting for the signal from the Constitution. When the Constitution blew the gun off, then it was time to lower the flag.
Yeah, the evening gun sounds and
For the whole
all the military.
military operations operating out of Boston Harbor.
It's an interesting thing about the guns on the Slater, which I told the tour goers afterwards. When you're there, the tour guides will invite you. You can turn it, traverse it, elevate it, work all the mechanisms. That never happens on a U.S. ship that is donated from the U.S. government, because they have to demilitarize it. They make sure the weapon's inoperable.
They have to spike the cannon.
Yeah,
all
they
that
have.
kind of stuff.
They have to even make sure all the worm gears are welded shut so kids can't get their fingers caught before the government will give up the ship. But since this ship didn't come from the U.S. government, it came from the Greek government. Everything worked. And so when she sailed up to Albany, we had these kind of in the back of our mind, if we don't get the state government to give us enough money to support military history, we'll do the Potemkin thing and just...
Turn it around, there you go.
We had to go through this legal fiction of the 3-inch, 40 millimeter, 20 millimeter guns were all donated to the New York State Military Museum, and then we wrote in a permanent loan of the weapons back to the Slater, because the Slater couldn't, under U.S. law, have a working 3-inch cannon.
So they don't belong to the...
Technically, unless they work that out otherwise, as soon as she got into harbor, we cut the deal where they were donated to the museum and then put back on permanent loan to the Slater.
Now, did they shoot it off at any point?
Last time I talked to the ship's master, Tim, which was years and years ago, he had a plan that he was going to load some kind of propane mechanism into the 3-inch gun, so that you could fire it off without having to go through the whole business of finding the 3-inch 50 caliber shell loaded with black powder. Yeah. Because cleaning a gun after you fire it with black powder, and I'm not talking about a rifle, I'm talking about a cannon, is an enormously difficult operation. It's very, very time consuming.
Well, how the heck did we ever win that war? How far back does the Slater go?
43. And she's got a great history. She was in the North Atlantic on convoy duty, which is what she was originally built for. They built these things so cheap and quick, they didn't expect them to last the war, let alone to today.
It was for anti-submarine duty.
Yeah. And then after the U-boat threat went down considerably,
which would have been about a month after it was commissioned. Right?
started to go down. But by 44, we had really realized we were over the hump.
Right.
We'd started over the hump in 43, but by 44 we knew it. There wasn't going to be a comeback from the Germans. Right. She got shipped to the South Pacific, and they re-rigged her with, they increased her anti-aircraft armament because of the threat from the Japanese developing with the kamikazes. So she did that, and then she came back, and we gave her to the Greek Navy. And there she was in the Guns of Navarone. You can see her in the movie. And also she was in Alicki Joins the Navy.
Who?
Alicki Joins the Navy. Which is, you never saw that one?
I
missed that one.
No.
Famous Greek comedian joins the Navy. And this is all about her misadventures on the ship.
Her or him?
Her.
Her.
Yep.
And it was done in Greek?
Yep.
Yeah, I missed that one.
And then the destroyer escort sailors bought her and actually had her shipped. They had a carrier, one of those ships that carry other ships across the Atlantic into New York, where she was berthed next to the Intrepid and was losing $100,000 a year. And that's when I introduced her to Albany, and they cut a deal. She came up to Albany.
So, who does is the ship belong to the Coast Guard now, or what? Or
The Slater?
yeah, or is it, or to the foundation, or
It belongs to, originally it belonged to the Destroyer Escort Sailors Historical Association, but apparently they founded a new Destroyer Escort Museum Association, which is separate from that, and they're actually the owners of the ship.
they're the owners?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's quite a ship, and anybody gets a chance to go see her. They've done a lot of work on it.
Now you've, I don't know. Are you familiar with Kirk Douglas's
Navy experiences?
Navy adventures?
Some of it, yeah.
On the maiden, essentially the maiden voyage of the, I forget what the name of the ship was. I forget what kind of a ship it was, but they had the same kind of. I don't think it was a destroyer escort, but it had the depth charge things like the Slater does, the depth charge things.
Well, technical terms here.
Yeah,
Try
technical
to stay up.
So anyway, they're on their first real voyage in the Pacific. They're first of all they get towed by a merchant ship halfway across the Pacific, halfway to Hawaii, to save diesel fuel. And of course, the merchant marines are just mocking the hell out of the about the Navy crew, which they'd already wrecked I don't know how many other ships and docks and everything else, the shakedown cruise. But this is their first real mission, and they're like halfway to Hawaii, and now they're finally under their own power, and they think they've discovered a submarine. And to this day don't know whether they did or they didn't. And the command goes out to fire the depth charge marker, which is green dye that they put in the ocean so they have a target. You know, I mean, if you're out in the Pacific, I guess one piece of water looks like another. So there's, well, in all the excitement, they throw off the depth charge instead of the depth charge marker, and blow their own ship out of the water. And Douglas gets hurt in the process, and they never do find the submarine. And I think they ended up getting towed back to San Diego at that point.
It's interesting.
And that was it. That was his entire adventure,
Yeah.
because he came down with dysentery from an amoeba he had picked up in Mexico just before they shipped, or Panama.
Don't drink the water.
And got hustled out of the Navy. He was because it was apparently a permanent thing. Well, they didn't have much in the line of antibiotics in those days, so they said, "You're done." And that was it. That was his entire naval adventure. But he got slammed up against an ammunition rack or something, and I don't know whether he broke a couple of ribs or.
I understood it hurt his back for.
Probably forever.
Yeah.
There's a hummingbird here. By the way, I don't know what we got on camera here, but we get the hummingbird feeder between these two guys, so you're going to see the hummingbirds periodically, maybe.
That was the thing I had to try to explain to one of the tour goers on the Slater. The tour guide was talking about the need to put the depth charges on safe if you were abandoning ship. And we couldn't quite understand it. And I was trying to explain to her, if they're set to go off at, say, 50 feet, okay, when your ship now sinks to 50 feet, all the depth charges are going to go off at once. And she said, well, that doesn't make sense. And I said, yeah, it happened. So that's why you always had to put these things to safe. The British used to, in order to speed up their attacks, would take them off safe even before the battle began. And there were cases where the British lost a destroyer or a corvette, and when she sank, all of her depth charges would go at once and kill all the crew in the water. So you had to always set them to safe before you abandon ship, or don't even bother. Those things were wicked.
I think we were talking a few weeks ago on the show about the Enola Gay, and how years later they. When they're starting to tell the whole story, there was a radio frequency that was used to set the where the bomb was going to go off, height-wise, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it was possible that they could have been blown up. The atomic bomb could have gone off in midair if the Japanese had accidentally or on purpose discovered the frequency, and or somebody's using their cell phone or something. Don't use your cell phone. You might set off an atomic bomb. Well, we were rushing those things out so fast that didn't have all the safety mechanisms built into them yet at that point.
They didn't even know exactly what would happen the first time they detonated.
No.
Some of them thought it was going to set the entire atmosphere on aflame. But yeah, the early German rockets, one of the defenses we came up with was sliding through radio frequencies to try to catch their signal and detonate them that way.
Is that right?
That was an early electronic countermeasure.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In most cases, most people don't realize the Germans had invented anti-ship rockets and kind of like guided missiles long before we did, and actually used them in a couple of cases during World War II. We lost a few transports to what would have been the equivalent today is like a Harpoon anti-ship missile that were launched from German bombers.
I mean, we lost a lot of shipping right off the coast of the United States. People don't realize how close the war actually came.
All the subs.
I'll give you an example. I was years ago. I was doing an environmental tour on the barrier islands of Long Island, and I was out by Smith's Point. It's a beautiful place. It's called Sunken Forest. It's like between the sand dunes. The original Long Island forest is still there, and if anything grows up above the dunes, the salt spray kills it off. So it's kind of like Shangri-La, it's the primeval forest. And so I was walking the beach with one of the park rangers, and a kid comes up with a piece of coal, and she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "It's coal." And, "Where does it come from?" And the park ranger was, "Beats me. This is anthracite coal." And
It come from Pennsylvania somewhere.
right. And the only coal in that portion of New York, there's not much of it, is bituminous coal. So what are we doing with a piece of anthracite? And I said, it comes from the USS Eagle, which is about 200 feet offshore, was torpedoed by a German U-boat in 1918.
Wow.
And her coal bunkers are broken open, and every once in a while she washes ashore. So, it's that close. And that was not the only warship.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, the Germans sunk the Eagle, a patrol boat, and we lost a couple of destroyers off of New York Harbor during World War II. But then, of course, the tankers and the cargo ships. The Germans used to call it the happy time because the United States Navy, first of all, the head of our Navy didn't like anything British. And so when the British were telling us, based on their experiences, you need the convoy, Admiral King was like, "Yeah, right, sure. Don't tell us how to run the Navy." I mean, we're the big boys on the block then. And they didn't take enough precautions, in addition to which the American civilians didn't cooperate. We wouldn't black out along the shore. I mean, Atlantic City, Miami Beach, they were all like, "Well, we'll lose tourist business." And so the Germans were like...
There was commercial ships being sunk within sight of Atlantic City. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a very famous picture of people standing by one of the Ferris wheels there, just looking out, watching a tanker burn, not very far offshore. And it took a long time for us to get organized and actually drive the U-boats back away from our shores.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking New York Harbor and the Brooklyn Navy Yard and everything else, and they were right there.
There's a story. It's not true, but it'll give you an idea.
Well, give us. We tell untrue stories all the time here. Okay, just let it go. If it's a good story, don't let the truth get in your way.
About the Coast Guard capturing a U-boat and finding on board a copy of the New York Times and Elmhurst Dairy milk bottles. But there were a lot of people who thought that folks were signaling to the U-boats from shore. And, German and Italian sympathizers were giving them shipping information directly.
Well, they probably were.
Well, we do know that there was a big spy operation.
We did capture the spies. They landed on Long Island that time, yeah.
Yeah, Amagansett in 1942.
Those were the ones who were captured are the ones we know about. We don't know about the ones that weren't captured.
There were a number of them that were picked up just before the war. There was a very big outfit in New York City. And if you remember some of those great movies like from World War II, like Bombardier, where they're like, we'll protect the Norden bomb site with our lives. Well, the fact is the Germans actually stole the thing from us, the plans, as early as like 1938.
Is that right?
Yeah. So all that stuff during the war about, protect it with your life wasn't necessary. The Germans had the plan. The problem was they didn't think it was of any value. That's why they didn't use it. because they thought, just like they didn't think they really needed 4-engine bombers, that the war would be over and they could handle everything with medium bombers. They didn't see the need for
Long range.
long-range, high-altitude precision bombing. So they had the plans, they just never used them.
Well, wasn't there a big controversy between the Brits and the Americans as far as the bombing raids, whether it should be done at night or during daylight?
Yep. And actually, it turned out that by the end of the war, the Brits had come around to our way of looking at it, because we were able finally to establish that you could take a target out with precision bombing much more easily than carpet. Yeah. In addition to that, this is one thing I always, when I deal with the World War II aviator veterans, they went through this whole business after the war, the strategic bombing survey, saying basically it didn't accomplish anything. Well, that's not true, period. I mean, that was a mistake. A lot of Ivy League doctorate types read the data wrong. But beyond that, what they forget is no German planes over Normandy, hardly any German planes over the Red Army. And why?
Because they're all busy fighting the.
Yeah.
I mean, I was seeing on I think on the military channel not long ago. I think really one of the most unsung victories of World War II was those several months leading up to D-Day, when we essentially destroyed the German fighter, the German fighters, by drawing them out to our bombers. And so a lot of guys from Amsterdam and a lot of other places lost their lives in those bombers, but they made it possible to win the Battle of Normandy. And it's almost irrelevant what they bombed in Germany. Although certainly, like going after the Romanian oil fields and stuff like that had to have had an effect.
And the ball bearing factories.
Yeah, because Germany didn't have any outside sources. They had to provide their war material from within their own boundaries, because at that point they didn't have a fleet that amounted to anything, and they were landlocked. Right? Where are they going to get the Japanese going to ship them all their manufactured goods?
And that's when Stalin was always after the Allies to create a second front. We really already had a second front. It was over the skies of Europe. And they took enormous casualties, 50% or more, in some of those air battles.
Well, there was something like, I forget how many flights they had to make before they could go home.
It kept going up.
It started out as 25, then went to 50, I think, at one point. But there was only like 10%
made it.
Made it. Which is flabbergasting when you think about it. It was larger in the Pacific, I think, up front, because I'm sure it was 50 to begin with out there.
Well, it was less organized Japanese air defense. I mean, the height of the air defense was probably the Doolittle raid, and you saw how much that accomplished. They didn't manage to take down a single bomber on the Doolittle raid, and that was probably when their air defense was at its best. So, basically by the end of the war, our B-29s were flying unopposed, or generally unopposed.
And our fleet was basically unopposed at that point as well.
Except for the kamikaze.
Yeah.
So that was a fascinating period in history.
I'm reading an interesting book right now. I've forgotten the name of it, and I forgot where I put it. But I started.
I won't be reading that.
I started reading it last week before we left for Boston. But it's about the naval battle that took place during the invasion of Guadalcanal.
Which one? Several.
Yeah, and really well written. The drama in it is terrific. And it was one of those perfect storm things where everything went wrong for the Americans, which is probably why I'm not familiar with the stories, because we lost that one.
Savo Island, Cape Esperance.
Yeah, I mean, they were like shooting fish in a barrel. Everything just hit just right for the Japanese. There were holes in our our ships were patrolling the straits, but there were holes in it so that they slipped right through without even being detected, and it was like the middle of the night, and everybody thought this admiral was in charge, and he was sleeping on some island somewhere, and it was all, everything that could be messed up was messed up. and the results were brutal. I mean, they blew.
We lost quite a few heavy ships.
They blew a good portion of our fleet right out of the water there.
That's when the
And meanwhile, the Marines on Guadalcanal were left unsupported.
Yeah.
We landed them and then pulled all the supply ships out, among other things. So, wow.
yeah, that's when the
How do we win that war?
the Sullivan brothers were all killed on the USS Juno.
Oh, was that in that battle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a series back and forth throughout that whole area.
Yeah.
One of the other things was the Japanese had gone to great extents to train in night fighting.
Right.
And had better
right, and that
optics.
was the point. They really knew what they were doing in night fighting, and we didn't have the slightest idea.
Yeah, we were waiting for the radars to show up.
Right.
And at that point, not too many ships had usable, decent radars.
Right, and they're thinking, well, this is they see the ship, they see a plane coming in on radar, and they're assuming it's somebody bringing a message to somebody, and it must be one of ours until they.
Open fire late.
And the other thing, the Japanese ships all had torpedoes on them, and our Navy had decided, well, we don't need to do that. You know, that's. What's the point of that? And it turned out to be extremely effective against us.
And plus, our torpedoes didn't work for good.
Right, and that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Right.
First half of World War II, 50% of our torpedoes failed because of design engineering flaw in their detonators.
Really?
Yeah, and it caused a lot of submarines were lost. A lot of attacks failed, both from from airplanes and from surface craft, because they'd fire, they'd be right on it, boom. And
It wouldn't go off.
Wouldn't go off.
One of the things that amazes me is all the money was being sent to the European theater, in North Africa, etc., but the European theater. And yet, we managed to nearly win the war in the Pacific before the European theater was closed. I mean, at that point, even shipping all the resources over, our guys had already basically won the war.
Pretty much, it was like the Japanese just wouldn't lay down and die.
Right.
Yeah, by the time, what was we were talking, May, VE Day.
Right.
Yeah. By May, we had already occupied.
We already had Iwo Jima. They were flying at, the B-29s were flying at well over Japan.
Wrapping up Okinawa.
And basically, by that time, the Japanese fleet was no longer in existence. Yeah. Basically, they were not part of the fighting force, and our ships were actually sailing right up to Tokyo Harbor unopposed.
Yeah. Our submarines were actually operating inside of Tokyo.
Inside of Tokyo Harbor, basically unopposed. So yeah, and you know you had the kamikazes. After Okinawa, you didn't even have too many of them.
And they were never going to turn the tide of the battle. I mean,
no,
there was just too much. The Navy was huge. There were so many combat ships, so many aircraft carriers, but beyond that, so many logistic ships out there. That's the thing about most people don't realize about how our Navy helped win the war in the Pacific. Is it wasn't just the number of ships and the size of our ship. It's the fact that our ships never had to go back to port.
Right.
We had so many ships out there.
We
just resupply them. It's like, stay off the coast of Japan and pound it till it surrenders.
Yeah, Uncle Si here never got off the boat for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just the way it. At Okinawa, we had 1,100 ships just in the Battle of Okinawa. Now, holy crap!
That's a lot of ships. That's a lot of ships in one spot.
What have we got? A
Holy
300 ship? We got a 300 ship Navy now. They had 1,100 at just at Okinawa. And that's not that's not counting everybody else they had in the Pacific and the supply lines and everything else, let alone what we had in the Atlantic at that point in time.
If you look at naval history before that, every big fleet battle is generally like, we go out, we have a battle, we got to go back to port.
Right.
But us, it was just, we'll go, and we won't be back till the war's over.
Right.
And they would stay
Won't be back till it's over there.
Yeah. Unless the ship was damaged, in which case, like in the case of the Ben Franklin, whose commander was a New Yorker, and she ended up having to limp all the way back to the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Right, and I think we had a couple of guys on that ship.
Yeah.
A couple of guys on the Princeton and
what a story that was.
The Battle of Leyte Gulf. Now,
Did I tell you I interviewed a guy from the Princeton? Did I tell you that story?
No.
When she went alongside.
Well, if you did, tell it again.
This is. I was doing a New York State Veterans Oral History program some years ago, and one of the first interviews I did was a sailor off the Princeton, and I believe it was a Ben Franklin.
Lean up a little bit closer this way again. Okay, good. Gotcha.
I believe it was a Ben Franklin, but his ship, the Princeton, a light cruiser, had to go alongside to assist putting out the fires and damage control on the carrier. While he was doing that, the ordnance, the bombs on the carrier blew, and everybody on the Princeton was knocked down, including him. And he was knocked into a bulkhead. When he got up, he said, my friend on one side, my friend on the other side were vaporized. They were gone. And he said, and the rest of the day, we went around picking up pieces of my friends and putting them into body bags. And then we ran out of body bags because there were so many casualties.
Yeah.
And we took the 3-inch shells and we put the pieces of my friends in the shells and threw them over the side. And finally, we ran out of shell casings. So we just hosed my buddies off the deck.
Yep.
And he was like, I mean, the look in his eye, I mean, it was like 50 years later, and he was telling me the story, and I was like, my God.
I'm pretty sure this guy, and I could be confused, but I'm pretty sure it was the Princeton. The guy from Amsterdam was, wherever he was, something blew off. I think it was one of these secondary explosions.
Yep.
And the guy right next to him had his head blown off.
Matter of inches.
And then next thing he's overboard and is like half hour in the water before anybody comes to get him. And of course, shark infested waters, as they all. You never know how many sharks there were in the Pacific. As soon as you.
It's amazing. I had at first thought I wanted to join the Navy before I actually joined the Army, but when I look back on it, I mean, naval combat is pretty frightening, especially with those large bore guns.
You got no place to hide.
No. And what's worse is when I was going through this later, somebody kept asking me what each door and porthole had an X, a Y, or a Z printed next to it, and the tour guide didn't know what it was, so I finally explained it. They're called condition yoke, condition X-ray, condition zebra, and what they are is different levels of water tightness, which doors get closed. And so the bridge, before going into battle, will say set condition yoke or set condition zebra, and that means you don't have to think or remember. You just, anything you see that has a Z next to it, close it and lock it down. And in a lot of these cases, you're pretty much sealing yourself in. And if your compartment floods, you'll die to protect the lives of your shipmates, because nobody's going to open that door.
Yeah.
And that's very similar to the article we have in the booklet about Donato Persico and the Squalus off of Portsmouth. I don't know. That would be a horrible thing to look at somebody and have to close the door on them and say, "You got to go," so the rest of us can live. Yeah. But it's like the Coast Guard always says. Their motto, their unofficial motto, I thought was great. You got to go out. You don't have to come back.
Jeez. Cy was both at Leyte Gulf and Okinawa, and in between this two, they were attacked by a kamikaze. He was on a carrier escort or escort carrier. So the small aircraft carriers are only a crew of 500, something like that. And he was on the flight deck crew, and kamikaze's plane, and one went down on the left of him, one went down on the right of him, close enough that a couple people got hurt, but nobody killed. I said, "Weren't you scared?" And he said, "We were 21 years old. We didn't know enough to be scared." And that's the thing, you just don't remember. These were kids.
Yeah.
Kids.
17, 18,
17, 18, or as Mary says in her song, I was 18, 19, 20, 21.
Yeah. By the way, we'll be playing that again this year at Memorial Day ceremonies on Monday.
Good.
Not going to read the names this time. She said she thought it sounded better in that setting without the names. And,
I'll be running it on the blog again. So
how many recipients are going to be?
3 or 4, including Paul Wallman, who's going to be the guest speaker or main speaker, and Dr. Kapler, who was an Army doctor in Vietnam, and 2 others, I believe. So I got to go home and make the medals tonight.
You're going to make the medals?
Well,
Let's put them together.
in order to get the, I wanted to design the medallion to be evocative of the original Amsterdam.
Right.
So I had to find that, and then I had to find a ribbon that was distinct. It didn't look like a federal or state ribbon, but the colors would line up with the backstory of the Amsterdam medal.
So it's purple and gold?
No,
Oh.
it's
Oh, the Sanford Silks.
Yeah.
yeah, right, the livery colors. The original Amsterdam medal was this just simple red, white, and blue, but that you see that nowadays is like swimming medals, Boy Scout medals.
Right.
So what I did is I got a medal, and there was actually the purple and the gold and yellow that were hard to find, so that you got red, white, and blue on one side, red, white, and blue reversed on the other side, so it looks back to the World War I design, it looks to the future. And down the middle are gold and purple, so that's the city and state colors as well as the national colors. And then you got to find it in the right design, because in heraldry, what they call medals, gold, silver, are not supposed to, are supposed to separate the regular colors. Colors aren't supposed to touch. And so to find a ribbon like that, I finally did. Instead, I didn't want to pay to have it made. It would be too much money. So I found one finally, and in order to make it all work, I have to take them apart and assemble the right medallion to the right ribbon and put it back together again to make it unique.
Are you going to get those mounted?
Yeah, yeah. If they don't cut my budget. So you know what they did last year? They tied up I had about 1,000 lined up for replacing flags around the veterans parks.
Right.
And lights and the like. And it got tied up where the vendor never provided it, but we never paid it, but it was still obligated. And until it all got cleared up and the money went back into the general fund, but I ended up being short of the flexibility of using the money. I didn't get the product, I didn't lose the money, but I didn't have it to use it on anything else either. So hopefully at the beginning of the new fiscal year I'll have unencumbered money, whatever there may be of it.
Well, whenever this fiscal year starts, which will probably be November or December at the rate we're going, maybe you'll have some more money. Anyway, I think we're out of time. We seem to have talked a lot.
It's 10 after.
Yeah. So again, coming up on June 2nd, your tours of the South Side with our city historian and other notable figures. This is a terrific looking booklet, Amsterdam South Side, and I say that with some pride, because I do have one small piece in here.
That's a great booklet.
But it looks terrific.
Only $5. Get yours now, because we did this last year for a Heart of Amsterdam tour, and out of 400, I have 4 left.
Wow.
And we expect these will go even quicker.
Wow. And who printed these up?
Miller Printing over on Guy Park, or just off Guy Park Avenue.
Did a nice job. Nice job. Okay. All right then. We'll be back next week with more of The Show with No Name.